Thank you very much. I'm very happy for this invitation and to be with you here. My responsibility in this presentation is to give you a high-level overview about IHE, what it does, how it works. You've heard IHE mentioned several times. I suspect that many of you are well aware of what IHE is. Some of you may not, so I apologize for those who may hear something they already know. But as the head of a French clinical society told me, every time I hear something about IHE, I understand better how it works. There are so many secrets to actually make it function effectively. And I will give you an overview of a few points of recent achievement, things that are not yet seen, but things that you have the opportunity to leverage in the very short term. They are well cooked, ready to roll. Products are about to be available or already available. So I would like to stress some of those points so that you see what IHE is bringing in practice to your products, to your deployment, to your projects. Stepping back and understanding what IHE does, on one end, you see those orange circles that are e-health projects. They can be a project within a hospital. They could be a project within a district, within a region, within a nation. A variety of scale here in terms of those projects. There are usually many of those, and those projects have, or too often, are each struggling with how do I interoperate, how do I move information, what standard should I use, how do I specify precisely those standards. And all of them are looking on the right side as this wealth of resources that represent standards. And when you know and start to open the big box of healthcare related standards, plus IT related standards that you need to combine, and you begin to navigate in that world, it's scary. It's as deep as you can think, as complex as you can think, as diverse as you can think. And many people say, oh, why is this so complex? Nobody has really organized this better. And the answer, no. Standards making in healthcare is exactly a reflection of the structure of healthcare. Healthcare is an extremely complex, disorganized world. So standards are complex and disorganized. Very simple. So we're not going to change this. So this is where IHE comes in. And the idea that maybe we can create structures to mediate. We've heard presentation on those in-house groups that are trying to mediate and bring a little bit of help and consistency in a certain geographical area. IHE is in that same thought, but focused on interoperability, focused on using standards, but it takes the world as its region. So in that sense, a huge challenge to organize the use and the application and the adoption and the testing of standards. Fill the gap between what a project needs and the good work that many folks have spent years doing in developing standards. IHE is not the only one. There is another organization that has appeared 3-4 years ago called Continua, who has a similar role, but which is very focused on home health. Okay? IHE has some interest in home health, but has a much broader focus. This is why those two organizations are actually working closely together. And I will explain how this cooperation is proceeding. So what are we doing in that box in the middle to make things work? What we are doing is we are listening. IHE is made of professional society, doctors, IT vendors, governmental authorities, in-house Arsenàl.IT entities all over the world, people that all together have decided that solving the use of standards and standardizing interoperability together was better than doing it individually. The process that IHE has established more than 10 years ago, and which is now very smooth, very effective, is to stay, number one, define what you want to do. So a problem of interoperability is described as a use case. What is the problem of interoperability we want to address? Healthcare and interoperability is an endless problem. How can we take a piece of it, solve it? Take another piece, solve it. So we take a piece at a time. We document this piece. We then select the standards, the best available standards to solve that problem. We then document technically the solution. In a sense, it's a standard on top of standards. It's a recipe on how to use the standards. Then, having done this, many people would have said, the job is done. And IHE says, unfortunately not. What is the guarantee that the implementers, software developers that are going to read this recipe to solve this use case and all of the corresponding standards understand it the same way? Will it work in the end? Will it do what is intended to do? So the idea is to say, why don't we call on the actual implementers? Have them build this type of interoperability in existing systems and products and bring them together in testing them. Testing them at what IHE called a connectathon. Proving that the spec works, proving that the need is met, and proving that it can be implemented. From this, we can then do a whole bunch of demonstration, explanation, conference like we do today, and eventually, very soon afterwards, products will come out. Products can be installed, can be configured, are integrated, and the need is met. But we've just done this for one problem, so we need to do it over for another one, another one, another one, another one. And the loop has been turning like this way since 1998. So having done this for 13 years is giving a little bit of momentum. This is organized because, again, healthcare is such a broad field in a variety of domains. So when you speak of IHE, you need to say, are we talking of IHE for interoperability in the laboratory world, in the radiology world, in the cardiology world, in the pathology? Oh, okay, many, many domains, and you see the list here. It's not complete. I was on a call last week with the blood transfusion banks that have major interoperability problem. They're not there. So maybe one day we'll see a blood transfusion bank domain because that's another dimension of this broad world of health and healthcare. In the middle, you see this little domain called IT infrastructure, which is not clinically centric, but which is trying to look at problems that are across. Funny things like security, privacy, identification, all of those common things that we don't want the clinical use case to address. We also relate to Continua for home health. Having done all of this for 12, 13 years, has delivered well over 100 profiles, and a profile is a piece of a solution. And this is addressing certain case home, certain cases the hospital, certain cases the doctor office, certain cases the region or the nation. So you now have an understanding of the breadth, in a sense. You have an understanding of the general process. Where has IHE grown? Where do we see IHE today being used, recognized, active, and alive? It started actually in the USA. Back in the late 1990s, where in the US they were in the process of integrating hospitals in a region. Hospitals were acquiring other hospitals, and they were creating conglomerate of hospitals. Guess what? The IT was all different in all of those. So people were trying to interconnect those things and discovering that it didn't work. And actually, some of them discovered that unlimited amount of money does not solve interoperability. There was a very well-known project that had an unlimited budget set by the board. Can you believe that? To integrate 12 hospitals, and the project didn't even start. And that was a shock, revealing that interoperability in health is actually a much deeper problem than just throwing resources and software engineers at it. Brute force is not going to solve it. We need a more clever way, and that's what IHE has tried to develop. IHE then very rapidly moved in Europe, in European countries, in Asia. You see this, and more recently, our last addition is actually Switzerland, and Switzerland, who is the country who is going to host the next testing session, the Connectathon, next year. This is amazing how we see this growth, and Italy was among the very early country, and Claudio and Lapo were among the champions that helped Italy and regions such as Veneto region to actually help IHE with the hope that they would in return help them. By the way, this is the rule in IHE. You help IHE because it helps you. And IHE has been set up so that if you stop thinking that IHE is useful and you stop helping it, it will disappear. So if it's alive, it means there are many people who think it's useful. Picture of a Connectathon. This one was in an old retired train station in Pisa last year. A very successful, broad Connectathon, which engaged hundreds of engineers, about 80 vendors, and well over 100 systems that were tested for a week. A massive testing effort, thousands of test cases. 4 years ago in Oxford, we had the leadership team of the testing laboratory of the NHS National Program in England. 100 full-time people in the testing lab, just for testing interoperability. 100 full-time people. That team came, audited the Connectathon, gave us £40,000 because they wanted us to come to England so that they could audit us. And we said, in IHE, no problem. We welcome your audit. The outcome of the audit was, wow, you're doing with about 1/10 of our resources 12 times more. So the productivity ratio of testing in IHE is 100 times that of a large lab set up by a large national program. And we had confirmation of this, by the way, by Gematik, who is struggling with the same issue in Germany, who has spent massive resources in testing, and learned and discovered through a European project that the ways and the processes of testing can be very destructive of resources or very effective, and this is what IHE is trying to bring to the table. We want to invite you, if you are available, to come to Bern. If you've missed Pisa, it was just around the corner for you. Too bad. Please come in Bern. The Connectathon is going to happen in Europe in May 2012. In the meantime, if you are in Chicago and you're looking for a sunny, warm place in January, this will be also another place where the US Connectathon, who is growing at 40% more participants from last year to this year. massive uptake, and I expect the European Connectathon is going to have about the same growth. So we are going to be faced with a success to manage, an even bigger success, I believe, in the years to come. Behind the Connectathon, there are tools, there is a lot of things, a lot of processes, a lot of things that make it efficient for everybody. I can tell you within GE Healthcare, my manager tried to prevent and reduce our involvement. He said, I'm tired of spending $100,000 a year in Connectathon fee in participating in testing tens of products. You know what the answer was? We're going to participate anyway. We can no longer stop our product team from participating into the Connectathon because they found the value. They have realized that testing and finding an interoperability bug at an IHE Connectathon cost $1,000 to find and fix. It would cost $10,000 to find it at the customer place. So you find 5 bugs, you find more than that. $50,000 is won in margin in this effort. Huge return on the investment. And this is due to the effectiveness and the tools that are available there. Very hard to give you a picture of IHE adoption worldwide, but it is important to step back to see that the process of IHE has been receiving international approval by ISO and the Health Informatics Group of ISO, where we have with 100% approval vote, a documentation of the IHE process to define profile, test them, and deploy them. We have this cooperation with Continua. I will explain in a minute what it does. In a sense, Continua is actually referencing several IHE profiles. In terms of projects, it's hard to give you the detailed picture here. In the USA, the national backbone, called the NWHIN Exchange, is based on IHE profile. They are recently, actually the last month, there are 7 states that joined 3 states, making now 10 states, but there are actually 5 more coming into the play, that have pledged their deployment of IHE profile. So this is the way things happen in the US. You know, the government tries to do something, fine, but actually the process is also coming up bottom up. So we are seeing a rather massive movement over there. In the European project, EPSOS, interconnecting the countries, that has grown from 7 to 11 to now 23, Italy being a very active member there. IHE profiles are being used. It's funny, the US backbone and the European backbone is using the same set of IHE profiles. And you know that those 2 projects has never talked to each other until 3 months ago. And they would say, oh, our spec are 90% the same. Oh, that's interesting. Who is responsible for that? Oh, those IHE guys who help us get moving faster. Oh, thank you. Good. No big press announcement, but to understand how IHE is actually bottom-up influencing and helping all of those projects. Countries, many countries in Europe have in their national program, in Asia, as well as I mentioned the US. We also have a project recently called IHE by the European Commission, who is organizing the process of conformance and testing and certification for Europe. And that project was actually significantly sponsored by IHE and has received good support by the European Commission, and we're going to see follow-up for this. And the Connectathon and the testing is playing a key role. Let me move faster. How long do I have left?
20 minutes. Yeah. This is the time.
Okay, so 3 minutes, going to be difficult. We have projects all over the world. I want to stress one very important thing. Is IHE is a Veneto thing, but it's equally a Japanese thing in Japan, and it's equally a Chinese thing in China. This is one of the key things that IHE has accomplished, is to be equally global in its approach and very localized in its deployment. And this is extremely important, and this is something that needs to be kept, which is not easy to manage, but that has been accomplished so far. A little URL here, you can look at projects all over the world and give you a sense of what those are. A new ID that is now going to be operational January 1st is something that IHE Europe has identified. We have found that the deployment of IHE today still need a little bit of support, and we are having projects that are telling us it's great, system come out of the connectathon, but to install those systems in our region, nation, or hospital, to actually test those systems together and turn them on, there is still a lot of work here that we need to do, and we don't really understand how to do it. We don't really understand the tools. There's a lot to learn. Could IHE help? IHE does not want to be a consulting company. What IHE wants to do is to take all of its know-how in terms of tools and testing and making it available as a support function to those projects all over Europe. So this is something new. We have experienced this with the EPSOS project, and the EPSOS project has been extremely happy of leveraging this. Has probably saved a year or two in its timeline because of reusing all of this IHE tooling and know-how on how to do their testing, and they are doing the testing all the way to turn pilot actual production on. A couple ideas on what's new in IHE. I want to speak about connecting devices in a patient home all the way back to care management, hospitals, and other entities. You see here the devices. You see the flow of information to an aggregator, which is your cell phone or a computer or a little box in your home. You see moving to a care management. You see moving back to a hospital or a care delivery institution. Everything that goes from the home, this aggregator in the home, all the way back is defined by Continua and is 90% based on IHE profiles. And you know where those profiles are coming from? They're coming from the profile that IHE was doing to connect devices in the hospital to the healthcare record system. So what we are seeing now, what has happened last year, is actually the joint delivery of a common way and a common set of standards and profiles to connect devices either to your hospital record management system or inside the hospital from your intensive care or whatever, or connecting the device from home back to the hospital. So as a result, we have an interesting situation where from your home or from inside the hospital, you bring device data with the very same set of standards, the very same set of profile, and when we speak of this, we have the standards to transport the data, profiled, we have the profile to secure the pipe, we have the profile to define the data structure, we have the profile to define the encoding of the data and all of the clinical values of all of the measurements that can be transmitted. So the complete chain with the complete depth. This means a revolution on the horizon where if you are a hospital CIO, if you are trying to wonder how to better connect devices inside your hospital, and you have projects in this, many hospitals do, if you based it on IHE profile, what you do inside your hospital, you can also get from the home of your patient in your region. Same standards, very, very powerful approach. I want to, in patient care coordination, give you one sample. These are document content for the management of maternity and childbirth. All the way from the beginning of the pregnancy, all the way out to after pregnancy and all of this, all the complexity that can happen during and after pregnancy. IHE has looked at all of that workflow and all of the information that need to be passed between all of the players. This is a set of CDA documents that contain that information. So if you ever look at deploying something in your region about this, this is a massive amount of work. Radiology, I want to spot one thing. Dose reporting, a very, very hot topic in many countries in Europe and around the world. There's a profile called REM, Radiation Exposure Monitoring, that gives you the connectivity you need from your modalities to your packs and risks to your dose management application, all the way to a national dose registry system. In terms of IT, there is a couple new things which are very important. Accessing terminology resources, sharing value set, you know, the little pull-down list of codes that people may bring into their data. How do you move this into the system? A provider directory profile, as well as further work on security and privacy. I will stop here because you will hear more this afternoon about workflow and how to move information in regional setting, and I've already exceeded my time by 4 minutes and 52 seconds. I want to thank you very much for your attention.